There are moments in life when the silence becomes louder than the noise around you. Moments when the tears fall in secret, when the doors close without warning, when people walk away without explanation, and you sit there asking heaven, God, why is this happening to me? But today God is saying, I told you this would happen, not to destroy you, but to prepare you. Listen carefully. What you are facing right now did not catch God by surprise. The betrayal did not surprise him. The heartbreak did not surprise him. The delay did not surprise him. The sleepless nights, the rejection, the confusion, the spiritual warfare, none of it escaped his eyes. Before the storm ever touched your life, God already saw the ending. And today he says, you cried because you thought I abandoned you. But I was protecting you from things you could not see. There are people listening to this message right now who have been fighting battles in silence. You smile in front of others, but deep inside, your spirit has been exhausted. You've prayed, you've waited, you've trusted, and yet it feels like everything around you keeps falling apart. But hear the voice of God today. When I remove people from your life, I do it with purpose. When I delay things, I do it with wisdom. When I allow storms, I do it for transformation. Because some lessons cannot be learned in comfort. Some breakthroughs only come through brokenness. Some prayers are answered through pain. You asked God for strength, and strength is born in struggle. You asked God for purpose, and purpose is revealed through pressure. You asked God for elevation. Elevation requires separation, and that is why God says, I warned you not to depend on people more than you depend on me. Some of you ignored the warning signs. You trusted voices that God told you to walk away from. You stayed in places where your spirit was dying. You held on to things that heaven was trying to remove. But even in your disobedience, God's mercy still covered you. That is the kind of God we serve. A God who still protects us while we are learning. A God who still loves us while we are broken. A God who still calls us chosen while we are struggling. Do not mistake your suffering for abandonment. The enemy wants you to believe your story is over. He wants you to think the delay means denial. He wants you to think your mistakes disqualified you. But God says today, I am not finished with you. The pain you survived was not meaningless. The tears were not wasted. The waiting season was not punishment. It was preparation. Because before God releases greater blessings, He develops greater character. Before He opens massive doors, He strengthens your spirit. Before He sends increase, He teaches dependence on Him. Some of you have been asking God, why did everything collapse? And God is answering, because I will not build your future on a broken foundation. Sometimes God allows the shaking, because He loves you too much to leave you unchanged. He will shake relationships. He will shake habits. He will shake pride. He will shake comfort zones. Not because He hates you, but because He is calling you higher. There is a version of you that cannot be born without this season. The stronger you, the wiser you, the spiritually mature you. And right now, Heaven is saying, do not quit in the middle of the transformation. The enemy attacked you because of what is inside you. There is purpose in you. There is anointing in you. There is greatness in you. You were never meant to stay trapped in fear, shame, addiction, or defeat, God says. You are coming out stronger than before. The same people who doubted you will witness your restoration. The same darkness that tried to break you will become the testimony that proves God carried you through. But you must stop looking backwards. Stop mourning what God removed. Stop chasing doors God closed. Stop begging for what no longer belongs in your destiny. When God says no, it is because He sees what you cannot see. Sometimes rejection is protection. Sometimes delay is direction. Sometimes isolation is spiritual preparation. And this is the season where God is teaching you to trust Him, even when you do not understand Him. Faith is not believing only when life feels good. Faith is standing in the storm and declaring, God is still with me. Even now, while you are listening, God is working behind the scenes. Things are shifting, chains are breaking, doors are opening, battles are being fought in the spiritual realm that you cannot yet see. Do not let temporary pain make you abandon eternal purpose. You have cried long enough. You have doubted long enough. You have lived in fear long enough. This is your wake-up moment, God says. Rise again. Rise after the failure. Rise after the heartbreak. Rise after the disappointment. Rise after the betrayal. Because what is ahead of you is greater than what tried to destroy you. And one day, you will look back at this painful season and realize, if God had not allowed the breaking, you would never have discovered the strength He placed inside of you. So today, stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, God, what are you preparing me for? Because this story is not ending in defeat. It is ending in victory. There are people listening to this message today who can still remember the moment God tried to warn them. Deep inside your spirit, you felt something was wrong. The conversations did not feel right anymore. The environment around you started draining your peace instead of strengthening your soul. You noticed the distance growing between you and God, but you kept convincing yourself that everything would eventually work out. You ignored the discomfort because you were emotionally attached. You stayed connected to people who were slowly breaking your spirit. You kept returning to places that God had already told you to leave behind. And now you are sitting in the middle of pain, confusion, heartbreak, and disappointment, wondering why everything collapsed so suddenly. But God is saying to you today, I warned you before the storm arrived. God always speaks before destruction comes. Sometimes He speaks through your spirit. Sometimes He speaks through repeated signs. Sometimes He speaks through exhaustion, confusion, or lack of peace. But many people ignore His voice because they are more attached to comfort than obedience. You wanted certain relationships to survive so badly that you overlooked the warning signs. You kept excusing behavior that was slowly damaging your emotional and spiritual health. You ignored the dishonesty, the manipulation, the negativity, and the constant battles inside your mind because you were afraid of losing people you loved. But God says, not everyone connected to you is assigned to your future. Some people entered your life only for a season. Some people were lessons disguised as blessings. Some people smiled in your face while secretly weakening your confidence, your focus, and your relationship with God. The hardest truth to accept is that sometimes the people you prayed would stay are the very people God planned to remove. You cried over relationships ending, but heaven saw conversations you never heard. God saw intentions you never noticed. He saw betrayal forming long before it reached your eyes. He saw the emotional damage that would come if he allowed certain people to stay connected to your destiny. That is why God began separating you from environments that were poisoning your spirit. But instead of trusting him, you fought to keep everything together. You begged for doors to reopen after God had already closed them. You kept chasing acceptance from people who were never assigned to value you correctly. You kept forcing connections that heaven was already dismantling behind the scenes. And now the pain feels unbearable, because separation is never easy when your heart is emotionally attached. You miss people who hurt you. You replay memories in your mind. You question yourself late at night. You wonder if things could have turned out differently. But God is saying, you are grieving what I was protecting you from. Not every closed door is a punishment. Sometimes closed doors are acts of divine mercy. Sometimes God removes people because they were becoming obstacles to your growth. Some relationships carry confusion instead of clarity. Some environments feed anxiety instead of peace. Some connections slowly pull you away from your purpose while convincing you that you are still moving forward. God says, I care more about your destiny than your temporary comfort. The painful truth is that many people do not recognize spiritual danger until everything falls apart. You ignored your exhaustion. You ignored the constant emotional battles. You ignored how disconnected you became from prayer, peace, and purpose. The enemy will always try to keep you emotionally attached to what God is trying to remove, because the enemy knows your future becomes dangerous once you fully surrender to God's direction. There were nights when God tried to pull you closer to him, but your attention remained fixed on people, situations, and distractions that were draining your spirit. You searched for validation in humans instead of seeking security in God. You depended on people to heal wounds only God could heal. You wanted earthly relationships to give you the peace that only comes from his presence. And when everything finally collapsed, you felt abandoned. But God says, I did not leave you. I interrupted what was destroying you. The betrayal exposed hidden truths. The disappointment revealed misplaced trust. The separation uncovered emotional chains you did not realize were controlling your life. Sometimes God allows painful endings because he knows certain things cannot follow you into your next season. You have been asking God why the process had to hurt this much. But transformation always becomes painful when God starts removing what no longer belongs in your life. Flesh becomes uncomfortable when heaven demands change. Pride becomes uncomfortable when God calls for surrender. Emotional attachments become painful when God begins breaking unhealthy soul ties. There are some people who cannot go where God is taking you because they only knew the broken version of you. They were comfortable with your weakness, your fear, your insecurity, and your dependence. But God is calling you into healing, maturity, wisdom, and spiritual growth. And not everyone will celebrate the version of you that begins to walk in purpose. That is why God allowed the shaking. That is why the comfort disappeared. That is why certain relationships became distant. He was showing you that your future cannot be built on unstable foundations. There are seasons in life when it feels like everything around you has stopped moving. The prayers feel unanswered. The opportunities seem delayed. The doors you expected God to open remain shut. You wake up every day carrying silent battles that nobody else fully understands. You try to stay strong in front of people, but deep inside, your spirit feels exhausted from fighting the same struggles over and over again. There were moments when you thought you were making progress, only to watch everything suddenly fall apart again. And in those painful moments, the enemy whispered lies into your mind, telling you that God had forgotten you, abandoned you, or rejected you. But God is speaking clearly to you today. You thought you were buried, but you were being planted. There is a difference between being buried and being planted. When something is buried, it is hidden with no future. But when something is planted, it is placed beneath the surface so that growth can begin in secret. And many of you have mistaken your hidden season for failure, when God has actually been preparing you for transformation. Seeds do not grow in public. Growth happens underground, where nobody can see the process. And in the same way, God has been working on your spirit in places nobody else recognizes. While people assumed you were losing, heaven was developing strength inside of you. While others overlooked you, God was shaping your character. While doors stayed closed, God was preparing you for opportunities that require wisdom, maturity, and spiritual endurance. Some of the greatest work God does in your life happens during seasons where nothing appears to be changing. Those quiet seasons are not empty. They are preparation seasons. God often removes distractions before he reveals purpose. He allows isolation because isolation exposes the condition of your heart. When the noise disappears, when the attention fades, and when the people you depended on walk away, you finally begin hearing God more clearly than before. The enemy wants you to believe the waiting season means God has denied your future. But delay is not denial. Sometimes God waits because he knows you are not ready for what you have been praying for. Many people ask God for elevation without understanding the responsibility attached to it. They ask for blessings without developing the discipline required to sustain them. They ask for purpose, while still remaining emotionally tied to destructive habits, toxic thinking, and unhealthy relationships. God says, "I prepare people before I position them." You have been frustrated because you wanted immediate answers, immediate healing, and immediate breakthroughs. But God works differently than human timing. He is not focused only on giving you temporary relief. He is focused on building a stronger version of you. And strength is not developed in comfort. Strength grows through pressure, endurance, waiting, and faith. There were nights when you cried in secret, because you could not understand why life became so difficult. You questioned your worth. You questioned your calling. You even questioned whether your prayers were reaching heaven at all. But every tear carried purpose. Every painful lesson exposed areas where God wanted healing to begin. Every delay forced you to rely on God, instead of depending completely on your own understanding. God says, "I was teaching you to trust me, even when you could not see the outcome." Faith becomes real when circumstances stop making sense. Anybody can trust God during easy seasons. But true spiritual growth happens when you continue believing while standing in uncertainty. The enemy attacks people who carry purpose, because purpose threatens darkness. There is something valuable inside of you that hell wanted to destroy before it fully developed. That is why the attacks became so intense. The enemy recognized your potential before you fully recognized it yourself. He wanted fear to stop you. He wanted heartbreak to weaken you. He wanted disappointment to convince you that your future had already failed. But the very fact that you survived proves that God's hand remained on your life the entire time. There were moments when you almost gave up completely. Moments when exhaustion made you question whether continuing was even worth it anymore. But, despite everything you faced, something inside you kept pushing forward. That was not accidental. That was God sustaining you, even when your strength felt gone. God says, "You survived because I sustained you." Many people only see the visible blessings, but they do not understand the hidden battles behind them. They do not see the nights spent praying through pain. They do not see the mental warfare, the emotional exhaustion, or the moments when faith became your only source of strength. They do not see how many times God protected you from situations that could have completely destroyed your future. And now God is using every painful experience as part of your preparation. The rejection taught discernment. The waiting taught patience. The betrayal taught wisdom. The loneliness taught dependence on God. Every difficult season carried lessons that are shaping the person you are becoming. You are not the same person you used to be. The pain changed you. The struggle deepened your understanding. The battles strengthened your spirit. And even though the process felt unbearable at times, God has been building endurance, resilience, and spiritual maturity inside of you through every challenge you faced. The enemy expected the pressure to break you completely, but instead, the pressure began revealing the strength God had already placed within you.